what my journey has been and how I have been able to get to know many different people across my path that have enriched my view, not only as you mentioned, as an academic or as a scholar, but also as a human being in general. So first of all, I would like to acknowledge que soy la hija de Marco Julio Carvajal y María Margarita Medina, la hermana de Julio Giovanni, José Anselmo y Paola, y también la tía madrina de Camilo, Haider, Valentina, Julián, Natalia, Daniel y Emanuel. Entonces, mis hermosos sobrinos y sobrinas que son una inspiración constante para mí en todo el trabajo que hago. Recordarnos también un poco el territorio que ocupamos dentro de la universidad. Estamos en territorio ancestral muisca, lo cual nos invita a pensar un poco cómo nuestra universidad y las prácticas académicas que desarrollamos se siguen configurando dentro de un contexto o un territorio donde no tenemos presencia ya de la comunidad indígena, ¿no? Al interior de la universidad como tal, ha sido como un reto lograr configurarse alrededor de ello. Esta primera imagen que nos acompaña es un roble que se llama Francisco, fue bautizado por los guardianes de una reserva natural en Arcabuco en el año 2022 como resultado de un proceso que más adelante les contaré que se llama Reconectando. Y bueno, Francisco nos recuerda un poco esa parte que somos naturaleza, ¿no? A veces se nos olvida que no estamos tan alejados o que la naturaleza no es solo ese refugio o ese lugar al cual acudir cuando estamos en momentos de ocio, sino que también somos parte de ese vibrar y ese sentir y ese latir de la tierra desde la raíz. Parte de mi compromiso, como lo mencionaba John, es reconocer nuestros ancestros, entonces pues también hago un reconocimiento a nuestros abuelos, abuelas, bisabuelos y demás ancestros que han hecho posible que estemos presentes aquí y ahora, a los líderes sociales que siguen siendo asesinados como resultado de los retos que tenemos como país, donde decir la verdad cuesta la vida. También hago esta presentación en honor a aquellas vidas que precisamente hemos perdido demasiado pronto y a las comunidades que siguen resistiendo. Hasta el día del 15 de abril contábamos con 32 masacres en el país, más de 100 víctimas y muchas más que seguimos infortunadamente contando al día de hoy. Entonces, que este sea una de las partes del compromiso que podamos asumir como sociedad frente a estas muertes que siguen ocurriendo. As you read in the advertising of this space, I decided to call it Decolonizing the Self, a glimpse, like just a little look into my journey, into a peasant's daughter's journey. So I will share like 5 key moments in my life where I consider that were fundamental in order for me to think as a critical decolonizing scholar. And this presentation will be accompanied by some artistry that was made by one of my students, Maria Camila Vargas Arevalo, so I want to acknowledge that as well before we continue. So in 2013, I had the opportunity to travel to the United States as part of a Fulbright scholarship so that I could conduct my doctoral studies in cultural studies and social thought in education. When I got to the United States, I was constantly asked why I was doing community work, because since I got to the States, I got involved with the farmers market, I was volunteering for the library, I was like volunteering for many different programs that US universities and the towns that we live in offer, the opportunities that they offer. So I was constantly being asked, like, why do you do this? I don't understand, right? Originally, my dissertation was going to be developed on how on displacement, because with my research group, we had had the opportunity to work with an NGO in Tunja, where we had been working with displaced youth and children. Unfortunately, the circumstances within the NGO changed, and that allowed me to rethink and reconsider the topic for my dissertation. So I started like wondering what were the realities, the social realities that were present in the context where I was studying. And then I came across homelessness. So, or houselessness, as we resignify it in the dissertation later. And then I was starting to understand what it meant to be a houseless person or not having a physical space to live, in rural areas in Idaho and Washington. So that's when I also started looking back to my home country. And you can see this picture. It was taken in Bogota by Ruch, is one of my students too, from Kia. So she was taking this picture while I was walking on the streets in Bogota and trying to understand what it meant, the houselessness experience in Colombia, and trying to come across the reality in the United States. So my dissertation had different stages and experiences, but one of the things that I want to share in this first part of the presentation is that my identity was constantly being inquired about or questioned, considering my decisions, the kind of work that I was doing, the language that I also used in academic and non-academic spaces, where I was inviting people to really be critical about systemic oppression and not only to blame individuals about the realities that they were experiencing. And then one of the things or the reflections that I came across was that, although we might be living in many different contexts, the realities that we may live might be similar. And of course, there might be differences according to the socioeconomic, sociocultural, and historical context that we are immersed in. And that's when the sentence, we may not walk the same streets, but the asphalt feels the same, came to me as an understanding of that reality that I have just expressed. Sometimes we invest a lot of our energy in trying to find the differences amongst us as humanity, but we don't think about the similarities or those aspects that bring us together. So I was thinking of reflecting upon that back in the day. So in trying to come across or finding an answer of why I was doing what I was doing, so that was an opportunity for me to really start thinking like, I don't know why I like community work, or why I like organizing, or why I feel committed to serve the communities. So I was talking to my family, to my parents, and they told me a story, or they reminded me a story when I was 3-4 years old in 1984. And then my mom told me that they had a little farm where my dad cultivated potatoes. So when I came to the land, I used to say, manos a la tierra. Y yo empezaba a escarbar la tierra y sacaba las papas, y por lo general sacaba las papas más pequeñas. Me dice mi mamá, dentro de este recuerdo de infancia, que cuando llegábamos a la casa, ella tenía que cocinar, lavar y preparar las papas más pequeñas porque eran las únicas que comía. So when my mom told me this story, I was thinking, like probably what I'm doing with this kind of work is putting the hands into work and using my skills, my knowledge, and my abilities, and putting it to the service of the communities. So that I think that that's what I do. I use my hands, and I take my hands to the soil. In this case, the soil represents those opportunities where we can resignify oppression and where we can do the things differently, even within the academic context. And then I came across Clarissa Píncola's test. She's an indigenous scholar. And then she has this beautiful poem that is called Planting the Child. And when I was talking to my mom about this memory, and then I read the poem, and then I felt pretty much connected to the message of our roots. So Clarissa Píncola's test says, whenever you raise a child, cuando tú eduques o formes a un niño, leave the hairy roots on. Déjale esas raíces puestas. The dying leaves under the new leaves, the dirt clothes swaying behind, so the child has something to sashay with in life, something to remind them they are made from dust of earth and dust of stars, so they have something to point them toward home. So when I read this poem, for me, one of the messages is that we have our roots. In my case, my peasant roots, from my grandparents and from San Mateo and Socha. My dad was born in Socha and my mom in San Mateo, in the northern part of Boyacá. So part of the values and the traditions of my family are part of the roots that I bring with me. And community service is at the core of my family. So my grandparents used to be leaders in the vereda, you know, in the rural areas, organizing campesinos for them to fight for their rights. My grandparents were, on my mom's side, were displaced by violence, you know. So then when I started listening to all these family stories, I came to understand part of my nature as Nancy. So that was super powerful to me. And then bringing back these words of Clarissa Pinkola Estés, so it's super important for us to bring those roots and keep those roots and remind ourselves that we are made of the earth as well. And that can lead us back home whenever we feel lost in the middle of whatever crisis we might be experiencing as human beings. So that was like the first part of, or one of the key moments in my life where I could like start thinking back of what I do, why I do it, some of the reasons or the motivations why I do the kind of work that I do. There was, so then I had the opportunity after my childhood and high school experiences to get into the university. I could study the bachelor's degree in language teaching and then the master's in language teaching. So in 2008, I was teaching pre-service teachers in the language school. And then with Jamie Daly and Jonathan, the two pictures that you're seeing in here. So we started to think of creating a research group. We read back in the day Pedagogy of the Oppressed by Paulo Freire, and we came to this idea of Freire that says that critical thinking is rooted in praxis. And praxis means reflection and action. And then that made sense to us. And then we started working with an NGO that is called Juventas in Tunja, where they work with displaced youth and children. And we started a volunteer program with the language school with more than 70 volunteers back in the day. And then that's when the name of our group was appeared, right? So we decided to call the group Knowledge in Action, because we had clear since that day that we didn't only want to theorize or to sit down and publish a lot of articles, probably removed from the reality of the communities. So we wanted to be invested in community work. So that was what KIA represented to us, the opportunity to bring together another kind of academic space where action was a core element in our own growth and obviously to be at the service of communities, as I was saying before. So as you will see in these pictures, like KIA's family has been growing and expanding. So we have had many different members since 2008. They have been creating their own paths and generating their own processes. And then you have a picture here of KIA working with Juventas. And so some of our ETAs, our English teaching assistants, they also got engaged with us in this volunteer program, as you can see them in the picture there. And then we have non-stopped in this journey of taking action. These last pictures that you will see are our most recent actions. We were supporting a contest of stories in Chita, Boyacá. Some of you might be familiar that Chita has a history where there was a caballo bomba that exploded in the town, and that divided the community, the population, because there was like a lot of distrust among the community members and a lot of people were injured back in the day. So este concurso Dejando Huellas de Paz es el segundo en Chita y fuimos invitados como grupo de investigación a ser jurados evaluadores. Tuvimos la oportunidad de leernos 70 cuentos maravillosos de niños y de jóvenes que relataban un poco la historia del pueblo a partir de sus memorias y qué ha pasado también con la violencia. Ese fue un proceso de crecimiento para nosotros también importante. Estos son nuestros miembros que se vinculan a partir de este año, 2023, y algunas de nuestras otras acciones generando procesos de paz y de reflexión en torno a quienes somos para construir paz. Y esta imagen es de la lectura, una de las lecturas rituales que hemos hecho en el año 2023. Entonces, este segundo momento también fue fundamental para mí para resignificar lo que veníamos haciendo como profes, una oportunidad de tener ese primer contacto muy fuerte desde la academia y establecer esos puentes entre la academia y la investigación y la universidad. Llega un tercer momento, para mí muy importante, y es cuando evidentemente tengo la oportunidad de viajar a Estados Unidos a hacer el doctorado. Llego en agosto del 2013 con las preguntas que les comentaba al inicio, donde cuestionan mi identidad. Volvemos a ser tratados como colombianos bajo el estereotipo de lo que significa ser un colombiano, e infortunadamente lo que primero se asocia estando en el exterior, que tiene que ver con toda nuestra historia de las drogas, sus representantes o exponentes, digamos, desde esa mirada, y también pues como mujer, los dos referentes, me encuentro con los dos referentes latinos y colombianos específicos que ellos conocen, una cantante y una actriz presentadora, y desde ahí empiezan a cuestionar nuevamente mi identidad, ¿no? Como que quién es usted, por qué está acá, etcétera, etcétera. Les comentaba también que la idea original de mi disertación era trabajar con los niños y jóvenes desplazados de nuestro país y las mujeres en el país. Sin embargo, no fue posible, y entonces doy la mirada a esa otra realidad que aparece en el contexto que estaba viviendo. So I came across this reality of housing instability, or houselessness, people that don't have a physical space to live in rural areas. I decided then to visit two shelters, one in Washington and Idaho. And one of the shelters offered me the opportunity to be there every Friday for 3 years, listening to people's stories, getting to know children, youth, women that were experiencing this reality. And it was also important, in that day, for me to start listening to people. So in my dissertation, I could listen to 12 different individuals whose testimonials and stories are brought into the document, and from which I could start humanizing them. Because most of the times, you know that when we are imposed a label by society, so we start by framing those people within those labels. So calling a person homeless in the United States was an equivalent to call the person a criminal, a drug addict, a mentally ill person, etc., etc. So there were many different stereotypes attached to the word homeless in particular. So when I started to listen to people, I could see that when we label them, we remove them from their ontological dimensions, so their ways of being. We remove them from their cognitive, intellectual dimensions, because they are also critical citizens of the United States that are not allowed to express themselves because they are labeled as criminals, etc., etc. And they were also removed from their political dimension. So for me, that was like labeling people in certain ways is dehumanizing them and denigrating them, since we don't allow ourselves to see them in a complete form, right? Like with their mind, body, and spirit. So I started listening to different voices. What you see here in this slide are some of the voices of people. When we listen to those voices, we can see how deep and profound their thoughts are, just in these simple sentences that I have just taken here. So you can imagine the exchanges or the dialogues that we had for many different hours, what I could learn from them and what I could understand from life itself, and what I could understand about this meaning of home, and what I could understand about what it means to be a human being. So Samantha was wondering about what this bond that brought people together. For Matthew was speaking a little bit about the sense of home, how the mountains and nature represent for a home for him. And then we had other women that were also questioning their identities and telling us how complex it is when you don't have a physical space and you cannot provide for your children. So then you start questioning yourself, not only as a woman, but also as a mom in some of the cases. So in general, or in sum up, what I wanted to express in this part is that yes, people experience many different kinds of oppression, but that a label is not allowing researchers to really put into perspective how complex those realities are and how complex it is to build one's identity. We can see some other voices in here, and the voice that I want to highlight in this slide is Crisan. Crisan is the real name of the woman in this study. And it was very interesting because she was an elder. She was like in her 60s. She was a grandma and she experienced a physical disability. And when we were talking, then she told me, like, I was asking her when, the consent form and whatever. So then I asked her, like, hey, so we don't have to use your real name, we can give yourself, or you can give yourself a pseudonym. So what do you want to be named in the study? And then she said, like, no, I want my real name to appear because I have a voice and I want my voice to be heard. So that was super powerful for me to listen about Crisan, because some people, they really want to have their voices being heard. And what we can do as researchers is offering a venue or a space for them to really speak up, right? It's not us speaking for them, but it is us offering a scenario for them to speak and use their voice. So that was super powerful to me. When Crisan said that to me, and I say, like, I was thinking with Crisan and another houseless person, and I said to them, hey, like, there is this conference, it is nearby, it is only like an hour away. Would you be interested in participating and sharing your story and talking, to professors, students, doctoral students, and academics about your experience? And they said yes. And then I said, okay, so let's work on the proposal. So Crisan and Alex, which is the other participant here, so they decided to go to the conference. So we wrote the proposal together, and I just opened the space of dialogue, and both of them were sharing their experiences over there. One of the results, among many other very interesting, was that the directors or the principals of the schools came to Crisan and proposed her to go to the schools and share her story with children and youth, because they were interested in hearing in their students to really understand how complex it is to experience housing stability, and to understand that it is not only the responsibility of individuals, but it is a systemic oppression that takes place from many different angles. So that was super powerful for me to see and understand, once again, my role as a researcher, that it is to really listen, to really care, and to really offer a venue for people to use their voices. Of course, as a researcher, also in my dissertation, I use my own voice to deconstruct the meaning of what the homeless, houseless was, to really make it more complex to understand what identity construction represented for these people, and also to make a denounce in terms of the systemic ways in order to promote housing instability in the United States. Because you know that the houses are super expensive, the rent over there is super expensive, so people has to work in two places in order for them to really be able to cover, their expenses, daily expenses, and of course including rent, which is super insane of how expensive it can be in certain states. And so no wonder that people are living on the streets, right? No wonder that people are committing crimes sometimes, not that I justify them, but that people are being taken by the socioeconomic system that is being created in order to make some decisions sometimes, so that are not, of course, like the ideal, but that it is not only an individual's responsibility. It's not that the people choose to live on the streets. Or I wonder if any of you has ever had this kind of complexity in in your lives, where you say, oh my God, I don't have money to eat, I don't have money to pay for the rent, or I have only money for me to either eat or pay for the rent or take the copies, or so sometimes we experience those kind of struggles in our lives and those kinds of hard decisions. During this study that was conducted in 3 years, in a 3-year period, it was a critical ethnographic study. So ethnographies take a little time to develop and conduct. So I was talking to my students in the research group here in Colombia. One day I was talking to one of them, and then I was saying like, sometimes I wish that people could really get under the skin of humans or of these people I'm working with and could understand the realities from a different perspective. So that is when the expression under the skin came across in a dialogue that I was having to one of my students in Kia. And when I was trying to really make sense, and I was, of course, a little bit angry, like I was like, come on, how people can discriminate and label people and deny them services and judge them, and they are struggling already. So how can we as a society making even harder the struggle? And alongside, al mismo tiempo, estaba dentro de mi formación doctoral tomando algunos cursos de feminismo chicano latino. Empecé también a leer y a tomar cursos con profesores indígenas sobre conocimientos indígenas, y empiezo entonces un camino muy interesante para mí de autodescubrimiento y de entender que soy body, mind, spirit, ¿cierto? Soy esa combinación, como lo dice Irene Lara y Elisa Facio en uno de sus libros que se llaman Fleshing the Spirit. Es como ponerle espíritu a la carne. And spirit in the flesh es como espiritualizar o ponerle espíritu a la carne y carne al espíritu. Cuando encuentro ese libro en el 2014 y empiezo a leer desde otro lugar esas 3 dimensiones de lo que somos, yo digo, wow, esta es una oportunidad maravillosa para poder hacer la investigación que yo quiero hacer desde otro lugar, humanizar y entender mi propio rol como investigadora. Entonces, a la par que estaba haciendo la investigación, yendo al refugio, estaba encontrándome con todas estas teorías, con un principio maya con el cual yo camino desde esa época y hasta el día de hoy, que es In la Quech, que nos recuerda que tú eres mi otro yo. O sea, si yo te lastimo, me lastimo a mí mismo y a mí misma, pero si yo te amo y respeto, me amo y respeto a mí mismo y a mí misma. Cuando llego ese principio a mi vida, entonces empiezo a entender nuevamente que mi papel es revisar mis prejuicios, lo que yo asumo sobre el otro, los estereotipos que pueda tener frente a alguien o frente a una comunidad y demás, y empezar a replantear y permitirme acercarme desde la experiencia y confiar en la gente. Empiezo a leer a Sean Wilson, que es un indígena canadiense, y él me recuerda que somos seres en relación. Entonces, nuevamente, estaba yo durante todos estos años inmersa en unas lecturas que verdaderamente nutrían mi espíritu, con las cuales superconectaba. Cada vez que abría un libro de un hermano mayor o abría un libro de una feminista chicana, empezaba a sonreír, mi espíritu decía, por acá es. Empezaba a revisar mi propio proceso también de construcción de identidad, mi propia resistencia a las etiquetas. Y empezaba entonces desde ahí a entender esa realidad de la inestabilidad de no tener un hogar en el contexto norteamericano. Sucede algo también muy importante durante esta época de mi estadía en los Estados Unidos, que fue entre 2013 y 2017, y en el 2016 inician las campañas presidenciales para quien eventualmente sería el presidente número 45 del país. En esa época hubo mucha discriminación, porque el discurso de este candidato era de odio, eran discursos de odio frente a los latinos. Hablaba de poner una pared, construir una pared en la frontera entre México y Estados Unidos, y literalmente trajeron, los que apoyaban a este candidato en su momento, trajeron una pared a la universidad donde yo estudiaba, en la mitad del campus, y la pusieron ahí los que apoyaban a este candidato. Entonces empezamos a marchar, a manifestarnos, nuestros amigos indígenas, indocumentados, latinos, de otros orígenes étnicos, y desde ahí empezamos a ver mucho miedo en la universidad. Entonces tomé ese espacio como una oportunidad eh, para verdaderamente revisar qué significaban las etiquetas. Y esa experiencia, a partir de esa experiencia en Estados Unidos, esta fue el primer momento, entonces seguí configurando lo que se denominó en su momento los talleres de bajo la piel. Eran una serie de talleres a través de los cuales invitaba a amigos de diferentes orígenes para compartir parte de su historia y para crear con ellos a partir de sus habilidades. Si eran poetas, hacíamos poesía; si eran artistas visuales, dibujábamos. Entonces estábamos creando muchas otras cosas en ese espacio, y la idea en el 2016 era que entendiéramos al interior del campus quiénes éramos verdaderamente las personas que llamaban brown people o personas de color, inmigrantes o de diferentes orígenes. Entonces en este espacio empiezo yo a hacer este taller de las etiquetas y lo traigo posteriormente a Colombia. Cuando llego a Colombia en el 2018, entonces desarrollo estos talleres, me voy de voluntaria nuevamente a colegios, a instituciones, a trabajar con niños, con jóvenes, a institutos de inglés también. Posteriormente también hago otros talleres de bajo la piel con Fulbright para recibir a los ETAs, a los English Teaching Assistants, que vienen a diferentes universidades en nuestro país. También desarrollo estos talleres en el marco de los procesos de construcción de paz, donde Educapaz me invita a hacer un taller con profesores. Es decir, este taller lo hemos aplicado con diferentes poblaciones en diferentes contextos con los mismos resultados. ¿Qué es lo que yo he encontrado en estos talleres? Uno, que si estamos viendo algunas de las etiquetas acá, es muy probable que nos sintamos identificados o identificadas con alguna de ellas, o que conozcamos a alguien que ha recibido este tipo de etiquetas, entre muchas otras. No son las únicas, aquí solo traigo una muestra de lo que hemos encontrado en algunos de los talleres. Y la reflexión, ¿cuál es? Que cuando de niños nos etiquetan o nos rotulan, o en nuestra edad adulta, en cualquier etapa de nuestras vidas, hay palabras o etiquetas que son tan fuertes que pueden determinar rasgos de personalidad, que pueden determinar mi visión frente a un proceso específico. Por ejemplo, cuando yo recibo etiquetas de mis profesores en contextos académicos, en nuestro caso hemos verificado de niños que de pequeños, o adultos obviamente ahora, que de niños les decían cosas como que eran brutos, o bueno, una cantidad de cosas que los han acompañado hasta el día de hoy y se consideran que no tienen las capacidades para. Entonces el poder de una palabra es muy fuerte, que puede destruir o construir y edificar. Entonces, la idea es revisar un poco nuevamente el tema de las etiquetas, cuáles nos impone la sociedad, nos impone la familia, nos imponen los amigos, los profes, y cuáles etiquetas también nosotros nos ponemos a nosotros mismos, ¿no? A veces nuestras voces internas nos mandan muchos mensajes de lo que no somos o lo que somos, y desde ahí empieza toda esa construcción de quiénes somos, de la identidad que promovemos. So these under the skin workshops have really offered me this unique opportunity to really re-signify the spaces for healing. So how we can start healing, and how we can use art in order for us to heal. So that is when my understanding of the importance of art came across. The importance of painting, the importance of dance, the importance of music, the importance of theater. So we were making plays during all these spaces so that we could really re-signify and feel a little bit detached from those labels that we were imposed upon. So now I'm going to invite you to see a short video where I documented the first part of this experience in 2016. This was an experience that I developed for a year and a half between 2016 and 2017. But in this video, we will only see the first part that was in 2016. I was interested in hearing about what people found in this space of Under the Skin. What were some of the messages that they had for us as a society and as a university? And also you will be able to see some of the creations that we did during this fall 2016, right? And alongside the video, you will see also some of my theorizing because I was coming to a close in my dissertation, and I was bringing some of the theorizing of my dissertation into this theorizing of what under the skin represented for us as a community. And also this information is also included in my dissertation because that was part of this thinking of different throughout the years, right? Okay, so I'm going to play the video and I hope that we can listen to it.
Dear Geraldine,
This is who I
I
am.
am who I
A
am.
label cannot
each
define me.
person is unique human, label and all. This is who I
I
am.
am not 5 letters.
I am a mixture of two
A
worlds.
label
Let me
cannot
tell you this.
contain
You
me.
are a jerk for labeling me as a fake Filipino or not a true one.
I am who I am. I identify myself.
Filipino, American, first generation immigrant, human, label and all. This is who I am.
So my name is Faith Price, and I grew up on the Flathead Indian Reservation. My family is mixed, Native American and African American and Caucasian.
Well, my name is Armando. I'm just a Bolivian guy trying to figure it out what else to do next.
As like a mother, it's one of the first things I want people to know about me as like a Native American woman.
My name is Maribel. I'm a junior here at WSU and I'm majoring in food science.
Yeah, and a lot of times they confuse me with Latino or Asian, and I'm not. It's hard because I'm indigenous. This is my country. I've been here for thousands and thousands of years. My people have been here for thousands and thousands of years.
And one of the things that Under the Skin taught me was it's okay to tell my story and it's okay to identify the way that I do.
And it's in our nature to label ourselves. And so Under the Skin was a series of workshops to help us go beyond those labels.
Being able to, again, express who I am without feeling guilty. Letting other people know that I'm here to support them.
But you don't really have the opportunity to share in this kind of way. Like, this is what I do, and like so openly and not framed in certain things like academia or some other things like that are super structured. Like the space you offered me, it was more open that I could be really myself, and I really appreciate that.
I felt like Under the Skin gave us an opportunity to talk and share about who we are on a deeper level.
And writing is really difficult for me.
I also appreciated the good food.
Kind of when we first began with the Under the Skin workshops, I really didn't know how I identified and how to tell my story and stuff like that.
A lot of us, we have something to say. We're doing things, and if I didn't do the workshop or something, probably you'd never really have a good understanding of what I'm doing.
Yeah, this provided an opportunity to meet a lot of people that I never would have met and to try some new things. And I really appreciated the artistic expression. I don't feel like we get that a lot, not at work and not enough.
But yeah, that kind of, but it was kind of broke my mold a little bit because my niece now, my 13-year-old girl, my baby at home, she's an artist because I buy her paintbrushes and stuff, and I was telling her what I was doing. So I actually took pictures. She just like, oh, Uncle, you know how to paint.
You really get to learn more about who you are and what how you perceive others.
With Under the Skin, with this whole idea of talking about the skin and identities and stuff like that, it's a very important topic that people should be thinking a little more,
Identified me as the Indian guy or the native guy, right? Or like they do with the black guy or the Mexican girl or and I just don't want people to think in those terms, because I think that way too myself, to be honest, and it's a hard thing to unlearn. But that'd be my message, just looking at identity and how important that is to student success.
I think it's really interesting to learn about other people's heritages and be able to share.
People from different backgrounds, I get to know them on a level that's beyond just what you learn from stereotypes, because people are a lot more than just stereotypes.
Just to be everybody, like, should be themselves and learn to collaborate properly, collaborate from the heart, not just from what our heads is telling us. Like, I think we should learn to collaborate as humans from our hearts.
Okay, so I will invite you in a few moments for us to share some insights about what we are hearing and seeing. But this is my way of honoring also these communities I have worked with, because it's super important for my own growth. And as you were reading there, like, one of the powerful messages that I get from my friend Armando is to collaborate from the heart, and that the idea of Maribel, that people are more than stereotypes, among all other messages that are super important in here. So in Colombia, we have also had the opportunity to develop these workshops, as I was saying before, and I will just leave you with this image of El Portachuelo. It's a vereda in Santa Rosa de Viterbo, and then so we could also bring these workshops to them so that they could see themselves differently and treat themselves different, which is the purpose of these workshops. Is not just to do or paint for a little while, but it's the message that hopefully stays with them, and can allow them to treat themselves from less violent and discriminatory ways. And then one of the last stages in my life that came to me as a gift, as a result of the work that we have been doing, working with Truth Commission and Educación para la Paz, Educapaz, Fundación para la Reconciliación, is this process of reconectando. Reconectando, or the work that reconnects, was originated or was created by Joanna Macy, which she made a combination of many different philosophies and traditions, including Buddhism and deep ecology. So she creates all this framework of reconectando that has 4 moments. And the first moment for us in this spiral that we are is coming from gratitude, is being grateful, es ser agradecidos por el camino, por las personas, por el recorrido, los ancestros. The second stage is honoring our pain in the world and honoring the pain of Mother Earth. And the third stage is seeing with new eyes. So we not only are thankful for our paths, but also and not only acknowledge the pain of nature and the pain of other human beings and our own pain, but also we allow ourselves to heal and to move on so that we can see things with new eyes and we can continue or go forward. So as you've seen, the first picture is part of our community. We are a group of 40 seeds or semillas or facilitators, or, in Colombia, in many different territories. So these are some of us. We were saying goodbye to Elena. Elena Ter Ellen brought this methodology to Colombia when the Truth Commission told her to support these dialogues between the survivors and the armed people, or the people that were inflicting violence in the country. And Reconectando, or the work that reconnects, was one of the methodologies that was used to create these, what they called in Spanish, los diálogos de improbables, diálogos entre los responsables y los sobrevivientes del conflicto armado en Colombia. So we have had the opportunity as a territory, as boyacenses, to develop our first Reconectando this year in Puerto Boyacá. So we had the opportunity to work with leaders that are African descendant, with many different generations. We had like youngsters, we had elders. Also, we had the opportunity to work with LGBTQI leaders, with peasant leaders, and some of the survivors and victims from Puerto Boyacá. You know that Puerto Boyacá is a very complex context in terms of violence, and as the inhabitants were telling or sharing with us, so the violence was there until before the pandemic started, like 2020. So they were telling us, like, here families are still, fighting. And, some of the illegal armed groups are still present in the territory. So what Reconectando has offered me is an opportunity to learn how a community can be sustained, also experiencing the challenges of building another kind of community, because Kia for me is my family, is more than a community, is like a family. But Reconectando offer us other kinds of challenges at a human level, like not everything is perfect all the time. And also we are always reminding ourselves of our egos, like what's going on here, the motivations, why do we do the kind of work that we do, and also the challenges that we experience in the institutions and in the territories to develop this kind of work. It's not an easy work, but we have acquired some tools for us to heal and for us to come together as humanity, as people, I guess. Okay, so in Reconectando, we see ourselves as militantes meditantes. So we are people who are not just, as Paulo Freire said, is not just thinking or theorizing removed from the communities, but it is also acting, because the action and working with communities give us other information from which we can build upon and we can theorize, right? So theory comes from our lived experiences. Theory comes, of course, from acknowledging the work that other people have been doing in the field and in the land. So in my case, for me to decolonize myself, it has represented to really see myself as a whole, to see myself as mind, body, and spirit, and to heal the parts of myself that I don't like very much. I am not completely healed. I am still working and experiencing struggles with some of the ideas or voices that come to my head that place me in a place of uncertainty or insecurity or low value at times, right? So that is a constant struggle and a constant, work with myself. But then decolonizing the self for me has allowed me to really understand my role within academia. And one of my roles is to build bridges. So what I do is build bridges between myself and my mind, body, and spirit, between my students' selves as well, between academia and communities, and also amongst my students. So my classrooms, my classes are communities, right? And I try to offer some tools that we together as classes not only learn some, theoretical concepts, but that we can understand and put those concepts into praxis. And that we can really be more meaningful with and intentional about the things that we do. So that's part of what my decolonial journey has represented, is seeing myself as mind, body, and spirit. Second is acknowledging all the work that has been written before I enter the dialogue of decoloniality. So indigenous scholars, feminist scholars that are Chicanx, Latinx, African scholars, third world women feminists, they have been contributing at least since the 50s or 60s to all these decolonial practices, right? So in a very respectful way, I enter this dialogue so that from the community work that I do and my own personal experiences, I can add some elements into what decolonizing the self may look like and may represent. So since day one, when I got into the doctoral studies, I had an issue with labels. I cannot really say or define myself, not even considering my gender or my sexual orientation or my place of origin. So in the first class of cultural studies in 2013, when then they asked me to define myself, I define myself as a human being under construction. And this notion has been the notion that has accompanied me till this day. I think that that is all that I am, a human being that makes mistakes, a human being that experiences hard lessons in life, a human being that has understood that service is at the core of everything that I do, a human being that is in constant, like watching out my ego, right? Like, okay, watch out here. A human being that falls down, but that also till this day has had the strength to stand up, to get up, stand and move on, boom, move on, right? So that is part of my positionality. So I position as a human being under construction, a critical decolonial scholar that is on the way of, developing more understandings. My role has been building bridges between academia and communities. And so this is what I have been doing with more consciousness, probably. Some other things that are not here are part of, the second part of my story into decoloniality. So there's many different things that make part of our lives, but at least these moments that I have shared with you today have really allowed me to position from a different place. So what I have been doing is hilando historias y tejiendo vida. Las ramas arriba representan esa extensión con lo espiritual, la dimensión espiritual, pero también la conexión con los ancestros. El tejido para mí también son las raíces de lo que soy, de lo que traigo y de lo que sigo resignificando a partir de las experiencias que vivo, a partir de los procesos de los cuales soy parte, a partir de las comunidades con las que trabajo, a partir de los retos que me presenta la vida. Es todo ese tejido y esas raíces que se siguen alimentando, sobre todo con base en lo que ya ha sido construido y tejido para nosotros por las comunidades y por nuestros ancestros. Cierro con esta frase de Gloria Anzaldúa, una de mis mentoras súper presentes en todo lo que hago, y ella nos dice que cada tanto, ¿cierto? Como que cada año, cada un cierto número de años, puede ser cada 5, cada 10 años para cada uno de nosotros sacamos las raíces, nos subimos a un tren y nos movemos. Algo de eso que se mueve cambia, pero las raíces como la cultura, la raza, la clase, algo de eso se queda con nosotros. We always pick up our roots, siempre llevamos o levantamos nuestras raíces and take them with us, y las llevamos con nosotros y con nosotras. Entonces, pues bueno, que así sea, que nuestra construcción de identidad y de quienes somos como profesionales y como seres humanos, no olvidemos de dónde venimos, no olvidemos que hay un propósito mayor a quienes somos y es el servicio a las comunidades, y que hay un propósito mayor para la academia, que es servir como un escenario para, ojalá, poder aportar a la construcción de paz y ojalá poder eliminar las opresiones. Como nos dice Paulo Freire, en todos nosotros están las dos fuerzas, la del opresor y la del oprimido. La idea será equilibrarnos y que seamos menos opresores cada vez más, y que si somos oprimidos encontremos la fuerza y nuestra voz para poderla levantar y defender nuestro derecho, como decía en otra de las diapositivas, a también hacer escuchar nuestra voz desde el respeto y obviamente de maneras pacíficas y que nos permitan la conciliación. Entonces, pues mil gracias por este espacio para reflexionar con ustedes, y quisiera pues escucharles en este momento sobre reflexiones o preguntas que tengamos frente a parte de este camino que he podido compartir con ustedes el día de hoy.
Profe Leida, siga bien, pues. Bueno, buenas tardes para todos. Primero que nada, quiero pues agradecer a John por este espacio. Yo creo que estos espacios son absolutamente importantes para parar un poco de lo urgente y centrarnos en lo que es importante en la academia, creo yo. Porque nosotros venimos en unas espirales de carrera con papeles y cosas administrativas que nos nublan un poco el por qué escogimos lo que escogimos ser, que es eso, servidores para los demás. Además, servidores en un escenario de servidor público, una universidad pública, que tiene una connotación muy especial. Yo quiero hacer tres reflexiones que me llevaron, digamos, que esta presentación me llevó a pensar un poco, y obviamente pues agradecer a Nancy pues toda esta ilustración de tu trasegar y de tu crecimiento y la claridad con la que tú has estado navegando en esas rutas, ¿no? Y cómo se conectan eh, bastante. La primera es, well, the first thing that I want to make emphasis on is this reflection that is very, very necessary about who we are, and much more in our programs. And I want to make emphasis on this because sometimes, because of different things, different variables, we come to our programs, our students specifically come to our programs thinking that I don't want to be recognized as a Latino, ¿no? Entonces está muy preocupado de, pero ¿qué pasa con mi pronunciación? Yo quiero sonar como un nativo, pero nativo, ¿quién es nativo? Yo sí los invito a que lean a Pennycook en su disertación sobre quiénes somos nativos y quiénes no. Quiero que piensen en lo que siempre han llamado minorías lingüísticas, los que se etiquetan como nativos llaman minorías lingüísticas a los hablantes de lengua que son el 90% del planeta de inglés, que no son nacidos en un país angloparlante. Entonces, yo creo que este es un espacio excelente para reflexión individual y crecimiento individual, pero es absolutamente indispensable para un programa de formación de profesores de lenguas extranjeras y de inglés, precisamente porque esto, por ejemplo, me llevó mucho a mí a pensar en una diatriba que yo tuve en mi vida en un momento hace mucho tiempo, que todavía me acuerdo, pero eso fue cuando yo tenía como 16 en la universidad, hagan la cuenta ahí. Y era que yo tenía como esa presión en el pecho porque me encantaba el inglés, pero siempre me posicioné como antiimperialista. Entonces siempre yo pensaba, pero yo ¿por qué estudio inglés y para ser profesora de inglés si para mí el imperialismo es algo que yo no podía, con lo que yo no podía conectar? Nunca he podido. Pero es eso, preguntémonos un poquito who we are. And also, let's ask ourselves about our identity. How is it that it's constructed? But where is it that we come from too? And to understand that this construction is made day by day with every experience we have. I'm 52. I am still, I am still working on who I am at this point of my life. But something very important is first for you to dismantle all those things that we have been taught about who a native speaker is and who is the one who is valid to talk about English learning, and why is it that we worry too much about having an accent like this or like that, etc., etc., etc. And I think that we professors, we also have to think a lot about it. Just in the selection of materials, for example, there is this tendency to select materials from those scenarios that had been colonizing other territories, which probably are much more interesting to study, like, for example, South Africa or India, in which, of course, all this cultural capital is as important or probably more important than the usual civilización inglesa, civilización norteamericana, etc., etc., etc. So this is the first thing. The second thing is about the native speaker, to dismantle this thing about the native speaker, to try to think about how is it that we connected to others through language and through what language means for us as language teachers and as language professors. And the third thing, there are so many things to talk about here, but the third thing that I want to, or that I connected with the story that you were sharing with us, and is this immediately clicks in my mind with this idea of Aventura de Sosa of abyssal thinking, ese pensamiento abismal. Yo creo que algo de lo que sufrimos mucho los occidentales en general, los latinos en particular, pero los colombianos aún más en particular, y es esa idea de que lo que está más allá de lo que yo veo, lo percibo, imagino, no existe. Y como no existe, yo no lo reconozco. Y no lo reconozco, entonces ni es verdadero, ni tiene poder, ni yo quiero saber de él. Eso nos pasa mucho a nosotros cuando queremos trazar ese borde de que lo que es verdad es mi mundo. And here with this experience, what we can see is that everything changes. And that every person that is in our surroundings, a colleague, a student, a person from our families, a person that is close to our hearts in different ways, they bring their own story with them. And we have to be respectful with that, not only because of our profession, but because of our human nature. And I think one of the biggest problems we have in life, but specifically in education, is that we try to dehumanize. This dehumanization of the other. It's like the other is a student, period. Now the other is a student, but it's also other kind of things, and it's a person with values, and it's a person that we can connect with in many different things. And of course, it's this ego, no, the ego of the professor who knows it all and who has it all. No, the truth is there, and it depends of where is it that we stand to talk about it. So yo creo que esto es absolutamente crucial en nuestra formación como profesores de profesores, como personas. Y sobre todo a mí siempre me preocupa un poco, siempre me ha preocupado desde que escogí ser lo que soy, es que nosotros a veces enseñamos más con el ejemplo que con la palabra. Entonces nosotros tenemos que ser muy cuidadosos, nosotros profesores de ustedes, pero ustedes como futuros profesores y colegas, estudiantes queridos, es eso, el cómo manejamos nuestros egos y cómo creemos que estamos más allá de la verdad absoluta y cómo a veces nos burlamos de nuestros compañeros porque pronuncian o no pronuncian, parecen o no parecen, porque son o no son, pero ¿quiénes somos nosotros? ¿Quiénes somos nosotros y por qué creemos que tenemos el derecho a? So this is something crucial. This is everything that I just wanted to reflect upon.
Awesome. Yeah, just to mention something in relation to how we build our path. I mean, like for me to really try to express today these ideas was not easy because we never consciously completely make decisions on what the next step is. So you never really know, okay, so now we're going to become like critical scholars, so that since this day we're going to be called critical scholars or decolonial scholars. Like you never really know because you are starting to navigate, and we are the result of all the questions that we ask ourselves and all the people and circumstances and theories and experiences that come into our path. And of course, today I can look back to the process. But when we are immersed in the process, I don't know what's going to happen in the next 5 or 10 years, or how I will be talking to you about what I will experience during the coming 5 years. So it is very weird. I was talking to Maria Camila, who was supporting me with these beautiful images. And then I said to her, like, I don't really know how to start. And the only thing that I could come across was, let's select specific periods of time, and not all the story is told. Because in order for us to understand everything that happened, so I would have to invite my KIA members group to talk. I have to invite, the people I work with in the dissertation, the communities from Reconectando, the indigenous circle, which is where I am part or belong to, in order for them to help me also put into perspective everything that has happened. So the first thing is for us to be, because you can imagine that, oh, you had it all clear all the way around. Like, no, I have made a lot of mistakes. And from my own faults, I have been able to learn. De mis caídas he aprendido. O sea, cuando la vida me ha dado más duro, cuando me han rechazado y estigmatizado, entonces yo digo, oiga, esta vaina las etiquetas, pero ¿por qué me rotulan así? Y al interior de mi familia también pasa. y me rechazaron y me discriminaron en algún momento. Entonces yo dije, no, o sea, como que esta vaina, ¿por dónde es y quién soy yo nuevamente, no? Como lo dices, profe, esta es una pregunta no resuelta y lo hemos analizado en algunas clases también, o sea, quiénes somos y vamos a llegar a hacer es una pregunta de por vida, o sea, no tendremos respuestas totalmente concretas. Desde mi experiencia sí tengo unas convicciones porque lo he sentido y lo he vivido y estoy actuando desde esa convicción. ¿De dónde viene totalmente? No se los puedo expresar porque no tengo certeza ni siquiera si estos 4 momentos que les expresé hoy sea la respuesta total para. Y como les decía también, hay otras circunstancias de mi vida, que no hubo tiempo para contarlas obviamente, pero que también han sido retos muy fuertes. Hubo una experiencia cercana a la muerte que tuve y que esa experiencia cercana a la muerte, pues también evidentemente me debió cambiar el chip y la forma en la que yo me veía a mí misma y veía mi cuerpo, porque no me gustaba mi cuerpo, no me gustaba mi cara, no me gusta. Pero cuando estás cercano a la muerte y te dan una segunda oportunidad de vida, tú dices, wow, hay otras cosas que son más importantes desde lo que tú actúas y desde donde actúas. Entonces, simplemente para darnos la tranquilidad de que este es un proceso, que vamos poco a poco, que la oportunidad que tenemos sus profes de compartir con ustedes hoy es como de poderles hablar de una experiencia que hemos desarrollado de años, ya llevamos pues años viviendo en este plano de alguna manera y que el interés es mostrar que también somos vulnerables y que desde la vulnerabilidad se aprende y se crece y que eso no nos hace menos académicos ni nos quita la autoridad para hablar intelectualmente o académicamente, y que esto también es la academia, como lo decía la profe Aleida, ¿no? O sea, somos humanos en medio de todas las dimensiones, y que, como reitero, para mí el día de hoy, yo hablo desde unas convicciones, desde unos lugares que me hacen sentir viva, que me hacen sentir feliz, que me hacen sentir como que, venga, este es el propósito de mi vida, sin que tal vez se siga resignificando, obviamente, a futuro con lo que venga, con las experiencias que vengan. Entonces, bueno, no sé si alguien más quisiera compartirnos otras reflexiones, sería muy chévere poderles escuchar. Quienes quieran activar su micrófono, lo pueden hacer. Ya estamos leyendo algunas reflexiones en el Adi. Dale, porfis.
Hola, buenas tardes.
Hola, ¿cómo estás?
Bien, espero que estén bien todos. Bueno, mi pensar, sinceramente, es que esta plática me gustó mucho. Sinceramente me hizo llorar un poco. Más que nada por estas pequeñas reflexiones que pude volver a tener sobre mí y sobre el mundo también. Sobre la deconstrucción, que es un proceso constante. Nuestro crecimiento siempre es de día a día. También sobre las etiquetas que se deben de quitar, porque no sabemos cómo estamos compuestos o por qué estamos compuestos de esta forma. Sobre todo que también hay todo un mundo allá afuera y hay todo tipo de mundos también. Y en el modo profesional, sinceramente no lo había pensado de esa forma hasta apenas ahorita que lo comentaron. Y se me hace muy, muy lindo, muy, muy amable también el compartir este pensamiento. Nosotros como futuros maestros, es que realmente no hay una necesidad, simplemente, bueno, a mi forma de ver, no hay necesidad como de competir, sino más apoyarse unos a otros, porque para eso venimos a este mundo, pues, porque no sabemos también qué está pasando una persona u otra. El, el ser noble y el ayudar no está mal, no está ser débil, simplemente es pues buscar lo mejor para otra persona. Y nada, pues muchas gracias por esta plática.
A ti muchas gracias por las reflexiones y ese es uno de los mensajes, o sea, podemos ser profes académicos, publicar, no sé, hacer investigación, viajar, o sea, no estoy diciendo que no lo hagamos y lo hemos hecho y lo hacemos con mi grupo de investigación, pero la pregunta es, ¿cuáles son las formas en las que hacemos investigación? ¿Cuáles son las formas y cuáles son las motivaciones bajo las cuales trabajamos con las comunidades? Hoy les comento, estaba hablando con una invitada que vamos a tener para el 2 de octubre, en toda esta agenda de paz de la universidad. Y ella es una sobreviviente del conflicto armado y estaba súper indignada hoy, le sentí su dolor y su rabia y decían, es que nos están usando a las víctimas desde la academia para, o sea, nos están usando para, pero no son conscientes de que también tenemos unos retos, de que en el día a día no tenemos recursos para, que nos va a tocar comercializar nuestra historia para poder sobrevivir. Entonces, hoy estaba en ese proceso de escucha con ella y nuevamente desde ese diálogo el llamado para la academia es cuáles son las motivaciones, las razones por las cuales hacemos procesos comunitarios. Lo hacemos solo por el hecho de publicar, de tener un nombre, de ser los pioneros, es decir, de seguir nutriendo nuestro ego, o lo hacemos verdaderamente para servir a la comunidad y servir de una plataforma, como les decía en un momento de la presentación, para que esas voces sean quienes verdaderamente nos envíen los mensajes directamente sin que nosotros seamos los traductores como investigadores entre las comunidades y la academia, sino que sean las comunidades las que tengan ese espacio. Entonces, nuevamente esta conversación con nuestra invitada para el 2 de octubre hoy me dejó qué estamos haciendo nuevamente en la academia y ahora pues más aún en este contexto de temas de paz, pero digamos que para nuestro contexto acá también de la Escuela de Idiomas tiene que ver con eso, qué vamos a hacer como investigadores y cuáles son las motivaciones reales. Obviamente, como lo hemos dicho, pues podemos publicar y hacer presentaciones, pero los cómo y las motivaciones detrás, yo creo que esa es la primera reflexión que hacemos en mi grupo de investigación antes de proceder a hacer cualquier cosa y de tomar decisiones. Entonces, pues es eso. Gracias, Adi, por tus reflexiones. ¿Alguien más que nos quiera compartir su voz hermosa esta tarde? Es muy chévere escucharles. Y gracias a Chantel por el comentario y la cita que nos dice, en un mundo deshumanizante, mantenernos humanos es un acto revolucionario. Estoy totalmente de acuerdo con ese pensamiento. Luz Andrea que nos dice que te quedas con la frase que pusimos ahí en la presentación, it is a right to feel whole, to tune up our voices and embark on a journey of self-discovery, reconnection and healing. Y también pues haciendo un reconocimiento del trabajo de María Camila. Entonces, this quote has resonated with my personal and familiar process and reminds me about the importance of deconstruct and learn and keep on walking together from questions more than with steady answers. By the way, I enjoyed to appreciate Maria Camila's art. So thank you so much. And Professor Aleida reminds us the importance of respect, empathy, being supportive and grateful for this journey. And I agree with all of you with your comments. Okay, anybody else wanting to share anything?
I think Professor Monevar wanted to. When I raised my hand, he also raised his hand, but I don't know what happened with him.
Ah, ok. Profe Adrián, ¿estás por ahí? Listo, pues queda abierta la invitación a seguir en estos diálogos. Muchas gracias por haber estado acá, profe John, muchas gracias por generar estos espacios de encuentro y de reflexión. Para todo lo que queda en nosotros resonando, pues seguir honrando el camino de todos y todas y que bueno, que sigamos nutriendo nuestros espíritus desde lo que nos llene, ¿no? Que eso es lo más importante.
Profe Nancy, pues nada, muchas gracias a su merced por su buena voluntad, como siempre. Siempre que nos sentamos a hablar, yo siento que tengo tantas cosas que aprenderle y sigo aprendiéndolo, de hecho. Muchísimas gracias por su buena disposición, a la profe Laida también por su participación, a los compañeros, a los colegas, a los profes, a los estudiantes, bueno, a los externos quienes nos acompañaron, muchas gracias por permitirnos pues desarrollar estos espacios. Recordarles que el 6 de octubre tenemos la charla con Vanessa Quintero. Ella nos va a acompañar desde Boston, directamente desde los Estados Unidos, y la charla tiene que ver con el translingüismo, translanguaging, y cómo esta práctica pues, puede irrumpir precisamente muchas de esas prácticas y nociones de las cuales hablamos hoy en día, del monolingüismo, el nativismo, entre tantas otras que son bastante nocivas, ¿no? Entonces, pues, profes, a todos, muchas gracias por estar aquí nuevamente, por este espacio de crecimiento, de compartir, y pues ya nos estaremos viendo por allí. Un abrazo y una feliz tarde para todos. Muchas gracias.
Muchísimas gracias. Buena tarde para todos.
Un abrazo, gracias.